AFR Talk. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Video segments of today's program will be posted at afr.net and on the Focal Point Facebook page. You'll also find the best collection of Brian's resources on our Facebook page. If you're on Twitter, you can be among the first every morning to find out what the day's show will be about. Just follow Brian at Brian J. Fisher.
Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. I want to close the loop on the immigration discussion today. This is an interesting story from the Associated Press. And by the way, you just heard Alex McFarland talking about Truth for a New Generation. I want to remind you about that. You can go to truthforanewgeneration.com. The Truth for a New Generation conference coming up September 5 and 6, Spartanburg, South Carolina. I've had an opportunity to attend this conference and speak at it. Terrific thing. This year's theme is Life and Liberty Given by God. Got Todd Starnes, Ben Carson, Eric McTaxis, David Barton, our own Tim Wildman, Josh McDowell, Johnny Erickson Tata, and more. Terrific experience, really geared toward millennials. Truth for a new generation to understand and know how to defend your faith and grow in your understanding of America's godly heritage. That's truthforanewgeneration.com. Now, interesting story on the Associated Press about this tragic story of this 11-year-old boy that died. He's from Guatemala. He died about a mile from the nearest home. They found him, heat stroke, dying of the heat. That's where he was found, but he's dead. 11 years old, apparently made the trek up here from Guatemala, got lost somewhere. An absolute tragedy. Makes you heartsick to think about it. You know, and to me, you know, people look at offense as sort of a cold, callous, cruel thing. And I look at offense as the most humanitarian thing we can do. And by that, I mean, look, if we had that double-layer security fence all across our southern border, this 11-year-old boy, his mom begged him not to do this thing. If that fence had been in place, he would not have even attempted because there would have been no way he could make it across. He would still be alive today, be in the arms of his mother if we had a double-layer security fence. It's the most humanitarian thing we can do to discourage these families from putting their children at this unconscionable risk. Now, what struck me about this story from the Associated Press is that they found the woman, the mother, in Guatemala. So that tells you, number one, these parents can be found. Do you understand what that means? These parents can be found. If we have children, we can get them back to their parents. It can be done. We can return these children to their parents. We can reunite these families. This is proof that it can be done. If the Associated Press can track down the mom, then the United States government and the Guatemalan government working together can do the same thing. And that's what I believe we ought to do. I believe these children should be flown back to the capital cities of their home countries. Guatemala, I don't know, was it Tegucigalpa? I don't know what the capital of Guatemala is, but fly these children back to the capital cities and trust the government to be able to reunite these children with their families. It's absolutely doable. Instead of taking these planes and flying them to Massachusetts and Oxnard, California, and Murrieta, California, and Laredo, and El Paso, and Fort Sill in Oklahoma, let's fly them back to their families. We've obviously got the air load capacity because that's what we are doing. Now, so the AP catches up with the mom. She says he was a good son, 11-year-old, remember, died in the desert of heat stroke. He was a good son. I just hope God gives me the strength to bear seeing his body when they bring him to me. Now, again, this is a tragedy. I mean, you don't want this for anybody. That's why we need to build a fence. I don't want any more Guatemalan mothers to lose their sons to heat stroke because they try to sneak across our border because we haven't secured it with a double-layer security fence. I don't want any woman, any mother, to go through this experience. But notice that she knows that her son's body is going to be returned to her. Do you understand the significance of this? We are going to return her son to her. We can do this thing. It's a tragic that his body is dead instead of alive, but why not get these children back to their mothers while they are still alive? We know, and this article proves, that it can be done. Now, according to the Border Patrol, we had 445 immigrants that died along the U.S. border last year. 445 immigrants died trying to get into this country. Every one of them would still be alive unless they died of something else, but every one of them would still be alive if we had a double-layer security fence that they could not penetrate. You know, we got 28,000 troops, 30,000 troops on the border between South Korea and North Korea. That border is sealed up tight. It can be done. Now, here's a story. Oklahoma Congressman Jim Bridenstine said he was locked out of the facility there at Fort Sill. They wouldn't let him in. He is a federal official. He's an elected lawmaker from Oklahoma, representing Oklahoma. They wouldn't let him in this facility, which raises the question, what exactly do they have to hide? An Oklahoma congressman, Jim Bridenstine, is wondering what the federal government is hiding after he was denied access to the facility. He said this: there is no excuse for denying a federal representative from Oklahoma access to a federal facility in Oklahoma where unaccompanied children are being held. We've got a lot of listeners in Lawton, Oklahoma. That's where Fort Sill is. This is where this is taking place. So he goes there, right there in your hometown, goes to Fort Sill, wants to see the conditions these children are in. They wouldn't let him in. When he showed up at the facility, Bridenstine says he was told by a guard with a security unit which calls itself the Brown Shirts. Can you believe that? The people that patrol this place call themselves the Brown Shirts. That's what Hitler called his stormtroopers. They were called the Brown Shirts. The security guards patrolling this prison, they're calling themselves the Brown Shirts. This is just amazing to me. And he was told by the Brown Shirts he couldn't observe the children or their living conditions. He would have to schedule a formal visit for July 21, put him off for 3 weeks. Now, Bridenstine described what he saw. Maybe some of you that live in Lawton can drive by on how close you can get, but maybe you can see what he saw. He said this: a new fence has been erected by Health and Human Services. So now they're building a fence to keep these kids in. So they can build a fence. They know that fences work. They know that fences keep the people of their choice out, and fences keep the people of their choice in. They know that fences work, and they can build it if they want to. A new fence has been erected by HHS, completely surrounding the barracks and covered with material to totally obscure the view. He added, so you can't see in there. They've got it all blocked off with material or plywood or whatever, or tarp, so you can't see inside. Every gate is chained closed. Now let me ask you this. What do you call a facility that has a fence around it with every gate locked and people inside? What do you call that? That is a prison. Now, they're trying to convince us this is a daycare facility. It's not. It is a prison for these illegal alien children. It's just inexcusable what's being done here. And then the story from Todd Starnes, we'll go to the phones here, but Todd Starnes, writing a piece on Fox News today that the medical staff taking care of these children in these different child prisons, and that's what these are. These are prison detention centers. These are children, they're child detention centers. Child prisons is what these things are, surrounded by fences, guarded by brown shirts, every gate locked. What is that? That is a prison. And children are the prisoners in these facilities when they ought to be back home with their families. I mean, again, think about this. If you have any ounce of humanitarian impulse in your heart, where do you want these kids? Do you want them locked up in a prison where they are guarded by the brown shirts, or do you want them home with their families, home with their mothers for dinner? That's where we want them. This is horrible. This is inhumane. It's obscene what's being done to these children. And Todd Starnes says the medical professionals that are treating these children, they have been told, don't you breathe a word about the medical conditions inside these facilities or you will be arrested. They have to surrender their cell phones when they show up to work, other communication devices. Anyone caught with a phone was immediately fired. Everybody's paranoid in this place because the nurses and the medical professionals have been threatened with arrest if they so much as describe the horrible health conditions inside these facilities. Let's grab a call. Let's go to Faye in Dallas, Texas. Faye, welcome. What's on your mind? Faye, welcome.
Hello.
Hey.
I wanted to tell you that about something going on here in Dallas. We have a federal judge, and his name is it's not a federal judge. I'm sorry, it's a Dallas County judge, Clay Jenkins.
Yeah.
And he has been on TV several times telling us that there are going to be at least 2,000 of those illegals placed in Dallas. And I called yesterday. We've been the word is out for as many of us as will to call him. And I called to talk to him about it, telling him that we didn't want these lawbreakers here. And it was his job to try to keep them away instead of encouraging them to come. And that they're bringing crime and disease with them. And by the way, I didn't hear all of what you were saying a while ago, but the reason why they wouldn't let that federal official into that base is because they didn't want him to see the disease these kids are bringing in.
I think that's exactly right. And that's this question. What are they trying to hide? And I think what they're trying to hide is you've got thousands of kids in these camps, prison camps, that have scabies. They've got lice crawling all over their heads. They've got other infectious diseases, whether it's TB, Chagas, dengue fever. They got all kinds of contagious diseases, and they don't want people to see how bad the conditions are in there and the threat that these illegal aliens represent to America's public health.
Right, and I wanted to give you the number, put that number of the Dallas County judge out to let people in the area call him.
All right.
The number is 214-653-7949.
And his name is?
His name is Clay Jenkins. Dallas
Now,
County
why would a judge be making a decision about whether these illegals can come to Dallas or not?
Well, he's making it for this area, but I wanted to tell you what, for the Dallas area, I wanted to tell you what they said when I called. His aide I talked to said, well, actually, they're abiding by a law passed by George Bush. I said, what law is that? He said, until their legal status is determined, we can't send them back.
Mm-hmm.
And I laughed and I said, what are you talking about? Are they coming across with citizenship papers?
Well, and that's the deal, Faye. It's just a bizarre thing. But if they come from Mexico, we can send them straight back. If they come from a non-contiguous country that doesn't share a border with us, like Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, there's a quirk in the law where they cannot immediately be sent back. They've got to be processed before they can be sent back. It's ridiculous. It's silly. That needs to be changed. All right, Faye, listen, I appreciate the call. Focal Point, AFR Talk. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us.